We're here with Kristi Medina, the Raton Public Schools Superintendent, and Jason Phillips. We're going to talk about what we hope to be a very soon construction and brand new pre-K through 12 campus for the Raton schools. Kristi, kind of explain what it was or how we got started down this path.
Yeah, well, we got started every 5 years. Our district is charged to do a facility master plan. And so about a year ago, we started the process and we pulled together a steering committee. And through the steering committee and our work, it was decided that our buildings for, planning for the next 5 years, that we should take a look at going out for bond for a new pre-K 12 consolidated campus.
One of the reasons, or I guess really you could almost say several of the reasons, is the age of the schools, the maintenance on the older buildings. We've come up with an estimate of at least $30 million.
Yes.
And of course, everybody knows, especially on these old buildings like this, that once you get into doing something, invariably the price almost doubles on some of that stuff.
Right.
So give us a kind of a rundown on some of the things that we need was part of the reason for deciding to go with a new school and campus.
I'm going to start a little bit with the age of our buildings. So Longfellow was built in 1935. It is now number 6 on the list at PSFA to be a building that has been high up on the list to be replaced. So we've always been watching that building. Raton Intermediate was built in 1939 and Raton High School in 1958. And they're a little bit lower on the list, but the needs are still great. As you mentioned, in order to upkeep the buildings to where they are and maintain them, it's going to cost about $30 million, which we also don't have. So it's going to take a lot to maintain each of the buildings. Going to a pre-K 12 consolidated campus, one main priority reason is safety. We'll have all the students in one area, and so when we need to secure buildings, they'll be all together. It'll be easier. Right now we have to lock down 3 campuses at one time and figure out logistics for kids in any situation at those 3 buildings. The buildings are old, and so they don't support any new upgraded technology needed to support the safety of our students at this time. The other reason is it also helps with transportation. Busing kids will be a lot easier. We have problems around our buildings with traffic and the flow of traffic when parents are trying to pick up kids, drop off kids, so this will hopefully help alleviate some of those stressors that parents go through. Technology is another big issue right now. Retrofitting all our buildings to keep technology updated is a problem, and every time they go to do something, they always have to spend more money or get more supplies just to retrofit the older buildings.
Right.
Jason?
Well, and I think kind of to expand on that, I mean, as the information comes out there, the first thing people think is a K-12 campus. We can't have kindergartners with seniors. It's a campus setting, but it won't be housed in that manner. I mean, it'll probably be a more exclusive breakdown than we have right now. At a minimum, we're looking at probably a building that houses K through 6 and then a 7 through 12 high school. But amongst that, it'll be a high school that's designed for that, whereas our current building is kind of slapped together as how you treat 7th and 8th graders and separate them. When you know that going in, they design certain wings where it limits the interaction between the different age groups. It gives you a lot of safety. When Kristi touched on safety, I mean, we have 17 doors right now, any one of which, if left open, allow you access to our high school. And if you think about it like a motel, you had the old roadside motels that each room had a door. Well, they got away from that for safety, and they had this consolidated lobby where everybody had to kind of enter through a center point, and that's where the modern school design comes in. And safety is an important part of it, but the age can't be overlooked. I mean, we're talking 88, 84, and 65-year-old buildings. And the obvious one, Longfellow, 88, got to go. And they were like, what's wrong with the high school? It's not just what's wrong with the high school, it's the nature of the funding that they're going to provide us. If we put in our $8 million and we can get 72, we could put in our $8 million and all we can do is replace Longfellow. But in any scenario, we have to slide our $8 million to the table. And what they've told us is if you do that and you right size your school, which is their key word in this thing, then we will replace all of your buildings in a manner that's consistent that you can have a modern school. But I think what people don't understand is the state's just not on the hook to take care of everything for you. They have a unit value that they assign to a student, say $6,000. And whether you're Raton or Rio Rancho, you get that $6,000. The difference is when you have an old building that's 88 years old and you're trying to heat and cool that building, so much more of your money is used in maintenance, utilities, and those type of structures that you're taking less money to the classroom than you are in other districts. So as a result, you're able to hire less teachers, you're able to pay less salaries, and that's where having a modern campus means that at least your full unit value is going towards education and not through, uninsulated walls and that type.
How many, one of the other things to look at, excuse me, how many of the other area schools are actually pre-K through 12? I mean, you've got Des Moines, Mascaro, Roy.
And that's a great point, Marty, because, we are in a competitive environment. We compete for students against those schools. We compete for teachers against those schools. And we're at a disadvantage. When we have older facilities and, it's judging a book by its cover, but when you move to a town and you see an 88-year-old school versus a brand new school, we have enough disadvantages already. Our class sizes are going to be higher. We have some advantages in programs, but you have to compete for these people, and they're our customers. So we have to kind of evaluate what we can do better, how we can look better, and part of that is, when other folks offer a 4-day week. So when we're competing for a teacher, we have to have a reason for you to want to work an extra day, and that needs to be the nicer facility. When a parent pulls up to look at enrolling in our schools, they need to see something that we're proud of. And it's not that we don't love the old buildings. Kristi and I both went through each one of these schools, and the architecture and all that, it's great. But it's like when you sit here and talk about La Mesa Park or the coal mines. The past is the past, and at some point we had to develop a vision to look forward to a future of Raton. Not for our benefit, your benefit. Kristi's youngest daughter will be out of the system before this school is christened. Mine for sure will. I have a senior left. But it's for the future generations. And maybe our kids will come back and teach in these schools, or our grandkids will be here. But, at some point in the past, city leaders looked at our water supply issue in 1946, said we need to develop a water supply to sustain Raton forever. This is an unenviable position to be in. We understand the property value impacts, and that we're kind of out there hat in hand. And I know I would like, and I'm sure Kristi would like, if in the roaring 80s or 90s, somebody would have done this for us and we'd be talking about 20-year-old schools and not having discussion. But this can has been kicked down the road about as far as it can. And, in my mind, not to be overly dramatic, it's the future of Raton at stake. It's not about my kids or Kristi's legacy, my legacy. That means zero to us. It's about the future of this town and what it's going to look like going forward. And, I think that's why it matters more than ever. And it's a small price to pay. If we put in $8 million and the state's bringing 9 times that, we'll never get that deal again. And we're really only offered that deal because of the terrible shape we're in. It's not because they love Raton. It's that even the state recognizes you need to do this, and they almost shame us, in these meetings that we haven't done it.
Right.
And we're a prideful community. I think we can carry ourselves. We're not big on handouts, but for 4 years of bump in property tax to have a $90 million campus that will probably last another 88 years before somebody gets to this point, I think it's a project worth doing. And after you lose a bond election, everybody's kind of spirits get down. And Mr. Camp on the school board kept bringing it up, and I didn't have a lot of appetite to take a loss. Ted every year would be like, hey, are we going to try again? And we figured we'd take one more swing for the fence and let the voters decide the fate of Raton.
You brought up the $8 million. We've already bonded $2 million.
Right.
Our total maximum bonding capacity was, if I remember right, 9 million. So 9 million is a far stretch from 30 million to get maintenance and stuff done on the school buildings.
Right.
And we wouldn't have any help with that. We would have to come up with some way to pay for the full $30 million
Yes.
plus to make that. So if we can hit maximum bonding capacity, which is 9 million for the Raton Public Schools, then the state will kick in the rest of the money to help build that school up to 80 million.
Well, I mean, I think the offer is pretty much up to what it takes to get what we need. We'll lose a little control in the process by them taking the money, but essentially, yes, they will. And it's a waiver request, so it's not a promise, but it is a request that they actually have been anxiously awaiting for. But, and I understand, in their eyes, it's skin in the game. If our own voters and our community doesn't care enough about our schools to put in their 10%, they will gladly just send this money to Maxwell, Des Moines, anywhere else
Right.
that votes a bond in, and we'll be left behind. And, to answer the larger question, the $30 million, we don't have it.
Right.
We can only bond to 8. And so it's a bunch of bad outcomes. It's putting Band-Aids and having buildings. And Kristi and I have discussed this. We're not looking for scare tactics on safety or that there's going to be moldy walls. Those are just realities, and people can accept them or not. But the charm of an old building, if any of you own an old house, wears off pretty quick. The first time the sewer snake comes out, and when you have a handful of maintenance staff trying to handle the square footage of roofs that we're under, you can never be good, regardless of how hard they try or how good they are. You could have double the number of staff, and you just can't make them shine that way.
Right. Numbers that we need to look at, a 90 house that's valued at, I guess, full value, $90,000. It ends up being taxable valuation of $30,000. That's only going to be $139 a year.
Yes.
That's a small price to pay for a new school system that will benefit generations to come.
Right. $11.63.
$11.63.
And the
How
way I
much?
like to put it,
Yeah.
Marty, I mean, my house is no Taj Mahal. It falls probably right in that wheelhouse. The corner of 5th and Mora isn't in the hundreds of thousands. It's one less Big Mac meal or supersonic cheeseburger meal a month for
especially
Jason.
with the way the prices have gotten these days. Everything has gone up like it has.
So Marty, one of the things we want to make sure the community understands is that it'll take 17 years for us to pay off the bond. Yet property taxes will only increase for the first 4 years. And then at the 5th year, property taxes are estimated to go back down to the level that they currently are now.
So that's a
deal.
This is only, basically the way to explain this is these increased prices will only last 4 years.
4 years.
And then they go back to where
Yes.
they are today.
Yes.
So 4 years.
4 years.
We should be able to handle a 4-year temporary tax increase to make this work.
Right.
I know in the past we've heard the thing that, well, my kids went, I went, it was good enough for us, it should be good enough for the others. You mentioned technology. We've got things like when we had the pandemic, we almost had to shut down the school simply because we didn't have the adequate ventilation. That's one of the things that's going to come with a new campus.
Yes, absolutely.
buildings.
We've had to spend a lot of money right now getting window air conditioning units in each of the classrooms because of the heat, and to help with some ventilation. We do not have HVAC units, so that will come with the new building. Our CTE programs that are running in classrooms that were outfitted for older buildings, and so technology in those programs have evolved and advanced, and we're not able to get there yet to help those programs be more successful.
The schools were built over 50 years ago.
Right.
Computers weren't even a thought.
Right.
So now we've got to get into the current technology and teach the kids, because that's the direction that when they get out of high school and the jobs they get, they're going to have that education.
Yes.
Well, and above that, Marty, I mean, these schools were constructed in a time that, you know, school years were shorter. We have no true air conditioning system in 2 of the 3 schools, and we have a school year that by legislation keeps extending. And whether we go later into May or we start earlier into August, these classrooms are hot. They're uncomfortable, and it's not crybaby uncomfortable. It's bordering on right where that cusp of APD saying it's not safe to have students in.
Right.
And so the answer to that is window units, because we don't have ductwork or anything. Well, what's the most inefficient way to cool a building? Plug a window unit into the wall and watch your electric bill sky, so that even more money comes out of the classroom and through an electrical outlet. And we don't really have a choice. It's, you know, I'm not a climate change guy or anything like that, but I'll acknowledge winters had more snow when I was in Raton as a kid, but we went to school more Labor Day through Memorial Day, and now we're well past that.
Right.
And you get to a COVID situation, which is, you know, whether an excuse or not, we were lucky to reopen because they wrote regulations based around Albuquerque schools that have HVAC systems instead of boiler provided heat. And when they want HEPA 50 filters in every HVAC unit, and you don't have an HVAC unit at all, they were leaving us on the outside looking in. We were buying ridiculous little portable machines to run in the hallway that I think did absolutely no good, but we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get back in-person education. And I mean, money well spent to be in the classroom, but money that was probably not necessary to be spent. But they're not going to change the rules for Raton. We're going to have to fit in the cookie cutter box, and that requires us to have upgraded systems to do that.
An upgraded school.
Right.
Upgraded school system. Some of the other issues that we're looking at, we've created educational opportunities for the upperclassmen in high school to do peer tutoring for the elementary school students. This is another one campus is another safety issue that keeps those kids on campus. All they have to do is walk to the next building.
Absolutely. We have a very successful near peer tutoring program, and right now, you know, we allow our students to drive to the other schools so they can work with the younger kids and tutor and mentor them, and it's a liability. You know, if a student happens to get in an accident on our watch, you know, parents and people won't be very happy. So with a consolidated campus, they're able to be there and maneuver between buildings by just walking instead of having to travel across town to Longfellow.
And you mentioned busing will be a lot easier in this respect. Right now, the buses are running from one school to the other, and you've got almost an hour's time between start to finish on pickups.
Right. Buses are having to travel between 3 schools, and so they pick up all our littles first, and they go out and take them home and come back for high school. And so there is some gap in between. So having a consolidated campus would eliminate some time and just the different areas of town that they will have to go to transport.
Now, we went through the process and decided on the property just south of the high school to build the campus on. What are we planning on doing in that space? How much more other than just school buildings? Are we going to do anything about sports fields, practice fields, another gym, age appropriate sizing of gyms, or something along those lines?
Yeah, so we did some preliminary designing. We have not in the design phase yet until we pass the bond. But initially, the thought is we would like to keep our gym, our current gym that we have right now. We're investing in it, updating it as best we can. We'd like to keep it because we won't get that size of gym again. We will get another gym that'll support what they call an auxiliary gym. That'll support some other games and practices and different things, classroom PE, and then a PE room that will be for the littles so that they can do PE as well. We will also be able to get a new track and a field. We will have to use our own money as a school to come up with bleachers and lightings and stuff to support that. But that's in the design of the new consolidated campus as well.
And people are probably wondering, well, there's not that much space out there. How much space do we actually have south of the high school for building something like this?
And that's kind of a loaded question, because part of it is, how did you get to the high school? And the first thing that the consultants that help you design schools, they'd say, we need a minimum of 20 acres, preferably 30. And so we had a site selection committee of community members that evaluated what turns out to be very few sites near Raton that have, I mean, if you imagine what 20 acres looks like, it's La Mesa Airport, it's the site where the racetrack casino was going to be, it's the high school plus some acres that we would need from either a west or a south neighbor. And other than that, you're talking about Roundhouse Park. That's about the size of what we're needing. So the options were pretty limited. So we went through a selection committee process, and it was far and above that this is the place that it should be. It does allow us to keep the gym, because like Kristi said, the state doesn't build the frills for you. This is about schools, not athletics. Even the fact that you get a track and the field, they're more of a PE-oriented environment where it's about
Right.
physical exercise and not your sports program. At the high school, we probably have 20 plus acres right now on what we're on, but we've got some elevation changes to the south that would make it difficult. So we would look to expand, but with a little bit of property to our west and repurposing what we're on right now, it would be about the perfect size for a campus. You know, the other benefit of being here is drop off and pick up, you know, happens at the same time at the same place, or even if we have different start times, we can move traffic more efficiently here. And the gymnasium is nice, and it's far and above what they would ever build for us, and it's in better shape than the school itself. So it'll be a trick to keep all of your buildings functioning while you're building out a school. And you know, to the question of it was good enough for me, it was good enough for my parents, that's really not the way I was raised to think, and I'd hope that's not how people think. I mean, I know my parents wanted better for me. As a parent, I know I want better for my kids, more educational opportunities. And, you know, I mean, due to the situation I find myself in, I now have 3 homes in Raton and going to pay taxes on this without a kid walking through the door. But if you're part of that retirement community and you want to have a doctor to go to or a fireman to respond to your emergency call, this is still important to you. I mean, even if you don't have a kid in this building, the police officer of tomorrow, the oil field worker of tomorrow, they're coming through these schools. And the better they are, the better our city is. You know, I mean, we have exported a lot of talent. A lot of good people have come from Raton and moved on. And when they look at coming back, you can talk to Sean Lurch or Bo Beams at the hospital. They'll tell you, our schools and our retail are what stop them from recruiting doctors. So if we don't have good medical care, then your retirees don't want to stay here. And it's all a symbiotic relationship. The city can't rise up off the bottom if the schools are dragging them down. The schools can't rise up if the city's in a state of disrepair. You know, we all rely on each other, but ultimately, we are probably the largest employer in Raton, maybe in the county of Colfax, and we're struggling to recruit and fill positions that pay well. We need Raton to be marketable to those teachers, and your education's only as good as the people you put inside the buildings, and part of the buildings is to get the people.
Right.
And that's what I hope, the folks out there understand is it's tough to get teachers nowadays. I mean, APS probably has 500 openings. We've got to have a good reason to come here. And the work that happens even in these old buildings, I believe in our education system. I mean, I look at my daughter graduated from Raton and how flawlessly she's transitioned to college. I think it could be that way for a lot more students if we had, better buildings, more access. And if, as a community, we say we care about education, because that's kind of what the statement is do you care about Raton's future education or not?
With better technology, more college AP classes could be offered to the students, which would give them a head start going into college.
Absolutely. And to people that take advantage of that, including, I thank God every day that my daughters did that. She shaved 2 years off of college that costs tens of thousands of dollars. And there's no scholarship that equals what our 2 years of CTE and dual credit courses do.
So the technology is going to be very important in this new building in more ways than just teaching.
Right.
You have mentioned that we have to upgrade all our fire alarm systems. Brand new fire alarm system, only one rather than three.
Right.
So that plus the HVAC system, heating and cooling, they say it's very important to have a temperature-controlled environment for students to learn in. If we don't have that, you've got kids falling asleep after lunch because it's too hot,
Right.
Which is going to be one of the advantages that we'll have with this. What are some of the other things that we're probably going to be seeing as far as classrooms, the way classrooms look, the way hallways look, or will it even be what they call a traditional hallway?
Yeah. So we've pulled some teachers together to kind of get their thoughts and ideas about what they would like to see in a modern classroom. And so a lot of it came down to a lot of collaboration. Right now, the way our buildings are, teachers are in different parts of the building. They're often not with some of their same like peers that teach the same contents or subjects, and so they're not able to sit and collaborate as much as they'd like to. And so that's going to be helpful. Or we are able to create what they call pods, so that they're in better proximity to one another, not only so the kids can collaborate and do things with learning together, but the teachers can also. In a newer building, obviously, we'll have better upgraded ADA accessibility for not only our students that we serve, but our staff members that need it, and families that come to our schools for events to be able to access our buildings a lot better than what they can right now. That's been a huge struggle lately.
Well, it's kind of hard to readapt an old school building to meet some of the new ADA requirements.
Yes.
Makes it tough.
Yep.
So we can build this in, hopefully build enough future into the school that we're compliant for a long time. Anything else you'd like to add?
We just hope that everybody comes out on November 7th to vote. Support our schools. Jason and I will be going around town talking with different groups and meeting, and we'd be more than happy to come talk to any groups. Just reach out to us, let us know when you're meeting, and we'll be there. Hoping just to get the word out as much as we possibly can. We have a fact sheet out that we've sent out through social media, through utility newsletters. We have a website. If you go to ratonschools.com, we have a website that has all the information, Q&A part that they can get all their questions answered. If you're still having a hard time and need more support or help with it, just give us a call and be more than willing to sit down with you and talk to you about it.
And you've got to get out to those people who don't have the technology.
Yes.
Well, and I think part of this, Marty, was one of the first things we did was we kind of did a reflection on why the bond were unsuccessful last time. And what I heard from the community is there was a lack of transparency, you couldn't answer the questions, and we're not out as early as we would like to be because it takes time to form the legal question, and finally yesterday's filing day and our question is on a ballot. But we're transparent. That's why we took the time to put together the taxable valuations. We know that this is an ask, and we're not trying to sleight of hand you that if your house costs this, we know that, and we still ask you to support us anyway. But, where is it going to be? What's it going to cost? What happens to the old schools? The old schools go away. They, as the new building opens, they'll be demolished. The district will either repurpose or look to put them into beneficial use. I can, I'm, as a city guy, not looking to acquire more parks, but we do have a need for infill housing development and stuff like that. And, I think that they're in residential neighborhoods for a reason. We still have the issue of Columbian, and we're still committed to working with the Housing Authority to try to put it into beneficial use. Kearney and the city are moving forward with a multi-million-dollar project. So the history and the architecture and the coolness of it, that'll stay. I mean, can we take some pictures and have a historical context of the mid-school and Longfellow? Absolutely, but sometimes part of moving forward is escaping your past and, leaving empty buildings behind. We were criticizing the past for not having a plan. We have a plan.
Right.
We know where we're going, we know what we want, and we just ask you to take us there for the benefit of all of us.
Right. So when we had the 2 earlier bond issues that failed, one of the other things that I heard was the older generation was the ones that got out and voted. And of course, most of them were on fixed incomes to a point they didn't want to see these tax dollars go up. What do we say to that generation of voter, that's on that fixed income? What do we tell them? How to convince them to vote yes for this?
I think, one, we ask you to trust us. I mean, this board is local people that care as our superintendent is. We're going to put it to good use, and I think that you see a return on your investment. I mean, I think property values have gone up, and while property taxes are higher, there's still a net value behind that. If we build a school, your home, your legacy, what you leave behind to your children when you're gone, it may be a few more dollars a month now, but I mean, that's the largest investment you have. And if you're leaving behind to your kids or your spouse a $200,000 home, that's a win-win. I mean, property values increasing generally across the world are accepted as being a good thing. You pay a little more taxes, but it's kind of like you hit the lottery and you complain about paying taxes. Ultimately you hit the lottery, and you got to look at it that way. And I would like to point out that somewhere along the line, whether you're 18 or 80, somebody stepped up and paid those taxes for you. Somebody paid for me to enter a school at 5 years old 43 years ago. It's kind of playing it forward at the McDonald's drive-thru and buying the next meal. I mean, if that's not what we do as a society, there's really no reason to have one. I mean, the whole reason of circling up and building the Pueblo is to raise the lives of everybody in that community, and that's all we're asking for is, let's do for this next group.
And it's only going to last 4 years. We need to really bring that to the forefront, because they only have to pay an increased tax for 4 years. Just 4 years.
And there is an urgency. I mean, the state is reaping in historic highs from oil and gas revenue severance tax. This $80 million offer that could be here today could be gone tomorrow. And then we're just driving the broke down old car with mismatched rims for the rest of our life, and it's we'll kick the can somewhere else, and it'll be somebody else's problem in the future, and they'll have even less tools to solve it. This is the time, the perfect time, and I think that if we miss this opportunity, we will struggle to ever seize it again.
Right.
And I think if we miss this opportunity, we can probably for sure bet that many of our systems we have going will fail at some point, where we will not be able to get them back going again. So anything from our boiler systems to our fire alarm systems, they'll just stop working.
We've already had boiler problems
We've
at the high
already
school.
had boiler problems. It's a touch and go. And so, it's sometimes those parts they can't find them anymore. They're obsolete.
Yeah.
And so it's getting harder and harder, and it could be pretty catastrophic if one of the systems fails.
Well, and rather than look at the bond as an expense, I hope people can see it as an investment. It's putting money away for a rainy day, for the future of Raton. And I think it's important to mention that a school isn't just a building. We know our role in this community, and the struggles. We're from here. We understand people aren't rich, but we're the ones that are going to feed that kid breakfast and lunch, and try to make sure their needs are met, provide a safe space and a place that they want to be in. You know, the key to graduation rate staying high is students enjoying their education, and that's having good teachers and nice places for them to go. And the more that happens, the higher quality all of our citizens are, and property crimes go down, and all of the related nuisance type activities all stem kind of from poverty. And the world's cure to getting out of poverty is hard work and education, and we're here to help provide both those if people would just give us a chance to.
And in order to fulfill those breakfast and lunch, we've got to have a cafeteria or a cafeteria kitchen that's actually working.
Right.
We've had issues with the cafeteria over the last couple of years. So
there's not a system that you just say is great. Tiger Stadium's not in great shape. Our gym requires work. Every boiler and heating system we have are aged, and you know, we're pulling off minor miracles to keep a lot of antiquated stuff running, and at some point you run out of rabbits in the hat, and when that day comes, we'll have a lot of egg on our face for things that it's not a lack of planning, it's a lack of resources.
Right.
And you know, this is kind of our one shining moment to look back where, I mean, it's not, if this bond passes, will I be proud? Yeah, but I mean, I think this community could be proud as a whole of being the ones that finally kind of broke through and did it. You know, we're not naming it the Jason Phillips campus, the Kristi Medina campus. It's gonna be a Raton school. You know, we try to keep everything named after the city that we represent, and you know, in good times or in bad, I mean, I think our people have a lot of pride. I think our alumni like having a place to come home to, but man, you know, those of us that are here have to fight this fight every day, and you can't just come home at Christmas and Thanksgiving and assume that mom and dad and everybody are going to be here, because if we all don't pull up our bootstraps, Raton won't rise.
right. And we've already been dinged by the outside world on our football stadium and track and stuff.
No.
So
I mean, we get ridiculed,
Right.
you know, pretty regularly out there in the world.
we haven't held a track meet in several years. So getting a new track will at least point us in that right direction to where we can.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to also understand that Tiger Stadium belongs to the school. And that's one of those maintenance issues that we've got, that we don't have the money to maintenance.
Right.
No.
We don't have the money to fix it. So to sum all of this up, we want to ask the voters for a small property tax increase so that we can bond out to our full 100% capacity.
Yes.
And then we can put the waiver in to the state of New Mexico, and hopefully they will approve that waiver and bring us another $70-80 million so that we can build a brand new, up-to-date, technology-wise school campus, security, and all of that. And to throw it out there as well, the tax increase will only be for 4 years.
That is correct.
Yes.
That's exactly how I would sum it up. It's a 4-year investment for an 85-year-old school to be replaced.
Yeah. And it's hard to get $8 million bond issue passed through and then the state come back and give us $70-80 million to build and take care of the campus and stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, that one's a hard one to swallow if it doesn't pass.
Right.
And you know, we're open to questions, suggestions, criticism, and we understand it's a money deal, and we humbly ask you to support in that. You know, it's not, we don't take it for granted that we're asking people that are not the most affluent community on earth to help us dig out of this hole, but we do it humbly. You know, I mean, and we'll do it together with you. You know, and I do think that it needs to be done, but I think that, you know, even the state projects these oil and gas revenues to taper off in 2 to 3 years, and by the time we would have another shot to have a question on the ballot, may be too late. So, I mean, is it now or never? Maybe not never, but it's now or probably not for a long time.
Right. Jason Phillips, President of the School Board, Kristi Medina, Superintendent of the Raton Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you,
Marty,
Marty.
thank you. Appreciate it.